Hey everyone, I pray that this video finds you well, and I just want to talk to you briefly about Acts chapter 7. Why Acts chapter 7? Because that is where our prescribed Bible reading plan finds us today. And so I wanted to share a few thoughts about that. It's a very lengthy chapter. Stephen had been selected in the previous chapter in Acts to represent and help oversee the help that the early church was given to the widows. And so Stephen was a part of that, and he began speaking publicly because it said that he was filled with the Spirit and filled with wisdom, and he had a gift for speaking and defending God and introducing Jesus Christ as the Savior of the world, God's Son, the Messiah of God. So he did that, but with the religious leaders of the day, it got him in trouble. And so we are seeing here that they are calling him to account for what in the world that he is talking and defending and speaking about Jesus so publicly about, which they had already said you got to stop that to Peter and John previously. But so he's talking to them as a history of Israel, of the Israelites, going way back to where Moses had brought the Israelites out of bondage into freedom. And they were in the desert when they received the law of Moses, what these religious leaders of the day hold so staunchly and so closely to. And Stephen is about to, with the power of God, the Spirit of God at work, reveal their hearts to them and for all to see. It says, Acts 7, verse 37, Moses himself told the people of Israel, God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own people. Moses was with our ancestors. Stephen is telling this to the religious leaders. He was with our ancestors, the assembly of God's people in the wilderness, when the angel spoke to him at Mount Sinai, and there Moses received the life-giving words to pass on to us. See, Stephen here, let me back up. Verse 30, it says, let's see, that for 40 years, after 40 years of Moses tending sheep in the desert near Mount Sinai, God appeared to him. Remember, in the flames, a bush that was afire, but not being consumed. That's Exodus 3 and 4. You can read that story if you like. And God spoke to him and said, go get the people. I've seen and I've heard. I know about their oppression. It hasn't escaped me. And it's time for them to come out into the promised land that I promised Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the patriarchs of the Old Testament that we read of in Genesis. And so here it was time. And Moses went and did that. And this message from Stephen was so powerful. He was filled with the Spirit of God and wisdom. And we see that when he's talking in verse 30, he said that Moses had been in the desert for 40 years. And you can liken that. I immediately thought of the 40 days that Jesus had spent in the wilderness, in the desert. Jesus and Moses are so closely linked. And that's why Stephen is going through this history, talking to the religious leaders who were so anti-Jesus. And it's no wonder that Moses was the one, when you read, and you may be familiar with what we call the Transfiguration, Matthew 17, Mark 9, Luke 9, where Jesus had taken Peter, James, and John, and he had been transcended into, or transfigured, into his glorious heavenly glow. And it says that Moses was there, Elijah was there. But there's no wonder Moses was there, because they're so close. And the scripture said, Moses told the people, God's going to raise up a person like me that is speaking the words of God to you, giving you life-giving words. That's what God sends his one and only Son, to give life-giving words. Moses was a foreshadower in many ways of Jesus Christ. Now, he wasn't divine or anything. Only Jesus is God, but we see a picture of that from long ago. And the point that Stephen is trying to make, they had killed Jesus, the Son of God. And he says in, verse 52, it says, name one prophet your ancestors didn't persecute. They even killed the ones who predicted the coming of the righteous one, the Messiah, whom you religious leaders betrayed and murdered. You deliberately disobeyed God's law, even though you received it from the hands of angels. Wow. Jesus brought the words of life to humanity, but it wasn't received, just like the Hebrew people had cast aside the teachings of Moses. Stephen goes on and reminds them that how their ancestors had mistreated the prophets, killed some of them, and just would not believe that God's life-giving words for them. Yes, Moses was a prophet that foreshadowed the coming and earthly ministry of Jesus Christ. And so that's one thing you can get from this chapter that is so full, but I just wanted to bring that out and let you think about that and think about what that means. It's easy for people, it's easy for religious people to cast aside the work and the words of God. May we always be on guard against that. We are called to be filled with the Spirit and then represent the heart of God in our world. So God help us do that. And God bless you in your reading. We'll talk again soon.